Hare Krishna, everyone. We are going to begin today's Bhagavad Gita class with the Mangala Charanam prayers to invoke auspiciousness. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai. All right, so we'll go to our memorization verse, which is chapter 13, text 22. Purusha Prakritisto hi Punkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karana Guna Sango Syat Sad Asat Yoni Janmasu. Do it again. Purusha Prakritisto hi Punkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Guna Sangosya Sad Asat Yoni Janmasu. Translation. The living entities in material nature thus follow the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Jai.
Oh,
Okay, so now let's turn to where we left off, which was chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. And we'll probably finish the chapter today. We're on text 16. So now this is starting a new section. We had just talked about the different ways, right? Yesterday's class was all about the ways that different ways that Krishna helps us. He maintains our existence in the world. What are some ways that you can remember? Whoever was here yesterday. What are the ways that we talked about that Krishna maintains us and helps us in the material world here? Divya?
he said that.
Okay. Fire digestion, sun, moon.
Spark of like everything is that is
Everything spark of his splendor. Okay, what else? Those are the sort of like gross external ways. Hunger, yeah. How about more subtle ways?
Memory.
remembrance, forgetfulness.
Yeah, memory, forgetfulness, knowledge. And also there's one more thing. How he helps us spiritually, especially spiritually.
Gives us the memory.
What was the last part of last two lines of text 15?
Oh, one can attain like by understanding him and by the process.
Which is what? How do we understand him?
he says that there are Vedas, and then he gave the Vedas.
Yeah, so he compiled the Vedas and he says, by all the Vedas, I'm to be known. Okay, good. So that's kind of what he's going to lead into now, after establishing himself as the goal of the Vedas, the compiler of the Vedas, the highest authority on the Vedas. So now he's going to give us a crash course on the Vedas in 5 verses, 16 to 20. So this is sometimes, especially the next 3 verses, are sometimes called the Tri Shloki Gita, or like the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of the Vedas in 3 verses, because they basically explain that the essence of the Vedanta Sutra. And Prabhupada will mention that in his purports. So let's get into this. So now it's going to become a little highly philosophical, but this is very nice. This is the essence. So we don't need to read all the lengthy 4 Vedas. We just need to read these 5 verses from Bhagavad Gita. Get the essence of Vedic knowledge. Okay, 16. Dvav ima purusho loke, ksharas chakshara eva cha, kshara sarvani bhutani, kutasto kshara uchyate. Pragati?
There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. Purport: as already explained, the Lord in his incarnation as Vasudev compiled the Vedanta Sutra. Here the Lord is giving, in summary, the contents of the Vedanta Sutra. He says that the living entities, who are innumerable, can be divided into 2 classes, the fallible and the infallible. The living entities are eternally separated parts and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When they are in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta, and the Sanskrit word given here, Sharah Sarvani Bhutani, mean that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but that there is no disunity.
Disunity.
Disunity. They are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as creation, but since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. According to the statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, there are 2 classes of living entities. The Vedas give evidence of this, so there is no doubt about it. The living entities who are struggling in this world with the mind and 5 senses have their material bodies, which are changing. As long as a living entity is conditioned, his body changes due to contact with matter. Matter is changing, so the living entity appears to be changing. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. They all exist in oneness. Sharha Sarvani Bhutani, any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being, Brahma, down to a small ant, is changing its body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the Vedic knowledge is answering the most basic questions of life, right? Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? Where am I meant to be? What am I supposed to do? And what is the process, right? Who is God? So yeah, who am I? Who is God? What is our relationship? How to revive that relationship? Where am I supposed to be? Because I feel very out of place here in this material world. How to get there, right? So these are the questions. And in Sanskrit, these concepts are basically divided into 3 categories of knowledge that are called Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So sambandha means relationship. Means so relationship. In order for there to be a relationship, I need to understand who I am and who the other person is and how we are meant to relate, right? Because if I don't know who I am going into a relationship, then it's just very unstable and difficult. And if I don't know the other person at all, then I don't know how to navigate the relationship because I don't know what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like, but I just don't know them. So I need to know myself, I need to know the other person very well, and I need to know like how to interact. What are the rules of exchange in this relationship, right? So yeah, so that's all sambandha. And then so abhideya means the process. What is the process for establishing the relationship, for enhancing the relationship, restoring the relationship? What is the process? And then prayojana is the goal. So where am I meant to be? Where does true happiness lie? What is the real truth? Where is, like that? What is the goal of life? And then, that also relates to abhideya because the process is not just establishing the relationship, but the process is also how to achieve the goal. Of course, in this case, the goal is the relationship, right? The loving relationship with Krishna is the goal of life. So the three are all, you can't just neatly, like, they're not separate from, there's a lot of overlap in defining them. So in the purport to the last verse that we read yesterday, 15:15, Prabhupada says, by understanding Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the sambandha. And then he says, by performing the different processes, one can approach him. So there's the processes, that's abhideya. And then he says, and at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the prayojana. So Prabhupada summarized that in one sentence at the end of the last purport, and that was his segue into this section here, where we're going to learn about who we are and what is our relationship with the Supreme Person, and then how we can approach him to achieve the goal. All right. So what is Krishna saying about who we are? Well, we're either in one of two groups. There are two groups. So I know that I'm a living being. I know that I'm a being, right? And Krishna is saying there are two types of beings, the fallible and the infallible, right? The kshara and the akshara. So this word fallible, it means fallible not in the sense that you're going to you could fall down the stairs or something, but it means basically fallible means that you're going to die. It means perishable. So akshara, literally means perishable. So there's a group of living beings who are going to die, and there's a group of beings who are not going to die. So how is that? Because we read in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita that for the soul there's neither birth nor death, right? All living beings are eternal, ever-existing, primeval, imperishable. So how is it now that Krishna is saying that there are some beings who are perishable, when he already said that every being is a soul and every soul is imperishable?
Is that the body? Like soul is eternal, but the body is with matter. Like what we read is it's connected to a matter, and matter is changing.
Okay, yeah. But does that mean that people who are in the imperishable category, that they never leave their bodies?
They do not have matter body. Yeah.
They have some ethereal bodies. No, so who are these people? Who are these people?
Gopi.
Okay, people in the spiritual world, in Goloka, Vrindavan, and Vaikuntha planets, or when Krishna descends to this planet, then his eternal associates come with him, and sometimes they come in their spiritual forms and they leave in their spiritual forms, and they eternally have those spiritual forms. Also, you could say there's a little bit of a gray area when we talk about the body of a pure devotee, right? Because in the Nectar of Instruction, it says that the body of a pure devotee is like the water of the Ganga. It's never contaminated, and it's always pure and spiritual. And that's why, we were talking about that in our Bhagavatam class here this morning, that's why the body of the spiritual master, after he leaves the body, it's not cremated, it's buried, because it's considered to be a spiritual body. So if you have a spiritual body, why do you have to leave it? Right? That's kind of a gray area, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then we have to understand the Vedic concept of death. What does it mean? By Vedic definition, what does it mean to die? Right? Because in one sense, the soul never dies. But yeah, so in the Vedas, but then it says that there's one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Ayur Harati Vai Pumsam Udyan Astan Shayan Aso Tasyarte, what is it? Tasyarte Katita Nita Uttama Shloka Vartaya. Anyways, it means that with every rising and setting of the sun, the duration of life is diminished for everyone, for all living beings, except those who always utilize their time in hearing the topics of Krishna, of the Lord, who are always hearing Krishna Katha. So that means that, yeah, pure devotees who are always engaged in Krishna consciousness, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping the Lord, then their duration of life is not diminished. In other words, they're not going to die. For everyone else, every moment is bringing them closer to death, but not for someone who's purely Krishna conscious. So what does that mean? So in the Vedic conception, death means that you're going to be born again in this material world. And so for someone who this is their last birth in the material world, that when they leave this body, they're going back home, back to Godhead, they're not dying. So why, in what sense are they not dying? Because we know that we're not these bodies, right? So within these bodies, we're living a life. We're doing so many activities. We're trying to achieve things. We're acquiring knowledge and various accomplishments here in the material world. So for someone who is totally on the bodily concept of life and living material life, everything that they do is going to be, everything that they achieve is going to be lost. Right? So death is a time of great loss. Not only do they lose their body, but they lose their money, they lose their friends, they lose their family, they lose their house, they lose their business, they lose everything. Right? But a person who's engaged, a pure devotee who's always engaged in the spiritual activities of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss, right? Because the body, they consider, well, it was never mine. It was just a thing. It was just this thing that I got stuck in. I never really identified with it, right? So it's not a big loss. And because they're not attached to anything. And then all of their achievements are spiritual achievements, right? So, the benefit that they got from, all that japa and kirtan and hearing all those classes and giving all those classes and doing all that service and all the spiritual advancement that they made and that they, helped others make, that's never lost. And they don't, and because, somebody who is very highly advanced, they're more in touch with their eternal identity. They relate with that. So their existence doesn't end either. If they know who they are in the spiritual world, that's who they are. They don't, and internally at the time of death, they'll be absorbed in that. And so they're not even really conscious of like leaving the body. It's just like, they're just internally absorbed and then there they are, it's like seamless. It's like nothing even happened practically. And then, in their internal meditations, they have their friends, in Goloka Vrindavan, they have their mentors and group leaders and, Krishna and they don't lose any of those friends or family members or their worshipable deity or, anything that they're doing. It just continues. So it's very beautiful. So that person is infallible. Right? Even though the body may get left behind and, cremated or put in a big hole full of salt and put a samadhi on top of it, but they didn't die, right? Because they didn't lose anything. There was no abrupt halt to their existence. It was just, yep, this is what I am, and everything, all their benefits that they accrued in this lifetime, they take with them. All their spiritual assets, they just take with them. So, yeah. So we can also become infallible. Like right now, we're in the fallible category because we're still attached to things that we're going to lose. But by Krishna consciousness, we can become detached, as we heard in the previous chapter, or no, early on in this chapter, right? We get the axe of detachment, cut down this tree. So yeah, when we become detached, when we see everything as Krishna's energy and use it in Krishna's service, then what is there to lose? Nothing, right? We don't lose our identity because that's eternal. We don't lose our relationship with Krishna. We just get closer to him. We don't lose the spiritual credits from our service. They just kind of like, merge into our eternal service with Krishna. So in that way, we can become infallible by devotional service. We can enter into the other category and then go back to Godhead where everybody's infallible. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and Prabhupada talks about what it means here to be infallible. It means that there's oneness in purpose, right? That we're all agreeable to the purpose of creation. So what's the purpose of creation? To serve Krishna, to get everybody back home, back to Godhead, right? This whole creation is just, it's created so that we can rectify our rebellious ways and go back to Krishna. Right? Just like a jail is created to rectify the criminal mentality, deviant mentality of the criminals so that they can go back into regular, normal civilian life and be functional members of society, right? So that's what this is. It's a prison now. They're just meant to rectify our criminal mentality so that we can be civilians of Goloka, live a free, beautiful, natural life. So when we're agreeable to the purpose of creation, then there's no disunity because whatever Krishna wants us to do is what we want to do. So that's the real oneness. When we achieve that, then we become infallible. Okay. Yeah, Pragati.
But I was just thinking that when you said that all the pure devotees, they do not belong to here. Like they are always connected to their spiritual thing. And also, like I was thinking when you are in this material world, when you, for example, you had your PhD, like offer from PhDs and all the material things lined up, and then you gave up everything and decided to live like not like you can also have like good house or something. What made you
What made
choose?
me choose to
Yeah,
not get a
how did
PhD
you
from
fight?
Harvard
How
and
did you
not be
fight
a
with?
rich and famous person?
Yeah, I how did you fight with that material desire of not, like you could have a big house or a lot of money or something, and then you fight with like you do not have such desires, and you chose this path.
Yeah, I think I just kind of did all that in the last lifetime. It's like been there, done that. What's the point? Yeah, I mean, before I knew about Krishna consciousness, I mean, I was always interested in religion and spirituality, but I just didn't see a lot of viable lifestyle options, right? I didn't see how you could live a spiritual life like full time, like be a full-time religious person, unless I was going to be like a Christian missionary or a church pastor. But even being a church pastor, I mean, in my youth, I was just seeing that, okay, they come to church like once a week, give a sermon, shake everybody's hands and go away, lead some prayers, lead some hymns. And then it wasn't clear to me what they do the rest of the week. Now I understand that they're actually pretty busy all week. Like they actually do a lot with the congregation and going to home visits and all these things, prayer meetings and stuff. But at that time, I wasn't seeing like how I could live a life for God, and just do that. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to do something material. I have to, figure something out. And so, opportunities arose. But then when I went to the Hare Krishna temple, first the ISKCON temple that I went to was in London, and I saw, wow, these people are just like literally from 4 o'clock in the morning to like 10 o'clock at night. They're just serving God. They're just living a spiritual life. Everything that they do is, for making spiritual advancement, helping others make spiritual advancement, pleasing the Lord. I was like, all right, this is the life I was looking for. And even though I had great material opportunities, I was just like, I don't know, it was just so unattractive in comparison. Like I had a sense in which all of those achievements would be temporary and I would lose them all at the time of death, which is exactly what Krishna's saying here. So I was like, yeah, I was very clear on like, why would I devote my life to something that I'm just going to lose at the end? I want to devote myself to something that I'm going to keep. I'm going to be able to actually, it's going to have eternal benefit for me and others. Arjuna's got his hand up out there. Yes, Arjuna, please.
I was wondering, in your opinion, do you think that you can have the best of both worlds? Like you can have, fully successful material life and a spiritual life? Because I often hear, the principle of like dovetailing everything into Krishna consciousness and, using, it's not renouncing everything, but using it in service. But if I may be a little critical here, I see that devotees who are materially successful are not necessarily your top devotees either. There's just maybe like a handful.
Yeah.
So while it might seem like, yeah, I'm using it in the service of Krishna, or maybe I'm, donating some money, and I'm not necessarily criticizing because I also have like a lot of material desires, but I wonder if you see that as practical, or if in reality, if you pursue all of these material endeavors, then you're compromising the possibility of going back to God in this lifetime.
I mean, whether you go back to Godhead in this lifetime is, I mean, it's an internal thing. It's not determined by your external engagements. If you look at the lives of someone like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for example, he had a karmi job. He worked outside. He had a very important and demanding job. He was like a judge, he was a district magistrate, like high court judge. And yeah, he was working a full-time job for most of his life. He had a big family. And yeah, but then he was very, very expert in how he used his time. So, he would do his work very efficiently, just go there, do the needful, get it done. And then so that he could devote most of his time to what was really important to him, which was his Krishna consciousness. So if you see the daily schedule of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he would wake up early. He was doing a lot of chanting japa, studying the scriptures. He was writing. He wrote many books, Krishna conscious books, and he wrote so many Krishna conscious songs. And yeah, so. And he would meet people and discuss Krishna consciousness and hold classes. And he started the whole, Namahata movement, encouraging everybody, all the householders to try to do what he was doing, basically. And it's like, okay, you got your jobs, you got your families, but make your homes a temple, invite people over, do kirtan, do Bhagavad Gita, and offer your food to Krishna. So he was encouraging others to do that. But then even with him, I mean, we don't hear about this much, but even with him, at the end of his life, when he retired, he just totally devoted himself. He never took sannyas, but he basically became kind of like a Babaji. He did what's called nirjan bhajan, where he kind of isolated himself. He kind of like locked himself away in a bhajan kutir, and he just was doing nothing but hearing and chanting and writing and singing bhajans and totally absorbed in Krishna consciousness before he left this world. So it was almost like that's really what he wanted to do. His real life was that. And his job was just a side gig, so that he could do that, to maintain his family so that he could do that. But also he was able to use the what do you call it? The credibility that came from his day job in Krishna's service, because when Bhaktivinoda Thakur would give a lecture, would go out and, preach, people would listen to him because he had that authority. He was like really like one of the most high up government officials of his time. I think they said that he achieved the highest post that a non-British person could achieve during the British Raj, during the British rule of India. So he was a person everyone would listen to. So when he spoke, when he said, let's make a temple, or let's, you should do this, you should all chant Hare Krishna, you should all read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, you should all open up your homes and make them into namahatas. People were doing it. When he went around fundraising for a new temple, everyone was giving. So like that, he was just using that in Krishna's service, but his main thing was Krishna's service. So the point is that we need to keep the main thing the main thing. Sometimes when we get involved in career and trying to really, get ourselves solidly situated in a career, move up the career ladder and, get promotions and all those things, then that can become the main thing. And then our job is just something that we squeeze in here and there when we get a clicker and just, click out a few rounds while we're, stuck in a traffic jam or, waiting in a line at the bank or, on a lunch break or something at work. And it's not the best. So it's clear to Krishna what's the main thing, right? So with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the main thing was his Krishna consciousness and his job. It was his job that he squeezed in between his Krishna conscious activities. And I've seen devotees do that, and if you really want to do that, then Krishna can somehow or other make a way. I know devotees who they get into, like corporate management and they have these big jobs, but they only need to they work from home and they just spend like 20 minutes a day on the computer and they just kind of log in and answer a few questions and tell a few people what to do. And then they go and worship their deities for 3 hours and manage a temple, some of them that I know, they're temple presidents. They're organizing like the next Rath Yatra festival or something all day and getting paid for it and earning, 150,000 a year or something. Yeah, so Krishna, if that's what you want to do, Krishna will facilitate in the same way that, even the British government, they were so impressed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur because he was a judge, so he had to listen to the plaintiff and the defendant and all the court and to consult the law books and the jury and all this. But basically, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur would just scan over the documents and he would already know what the decision was. And then everything else was formalities and it would just go really quickly and then boom, drop the hammer, the anvil and or whatever that thing's, the mallet, the judge's hammer and decide the case. So the British loved him because he could handle so many cases in a day and just clear it all out and just go home, done. So Krishna gave him the intelligence and the organization, the efficiency to be able to do his job very quickly. Yeah.
I like your point when you said that right now I think we are squeezing Krishna consciousness in the job, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he squeezes his job in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
And right now I think we are not too, like when we are too much serious for Krishna consciousness, I think job and all the material things are automatically aside and
Yeah.
we focus on there.
I mean, you have someone like Vaisheshika Prabhu who's married, he's a householder. And so he has a business. I think he started this business of selling water filters or something like that. And basically he started the business and then he just, got some people to do most of the work and so he gets a profit. He hardly has to do anything. He's just getting a profit from other people working for him. So yeah, he just had to figure something out what to do. But if we really want to serve Krishna, Krishna's going to make it happen because Krishna really wants people to really serve him in this world. He actually needs people to serve him. He needs people to, share Krishna consciousness, go out there and talk to people and distribute books and travel and do classes and seminars and festivals and projects and restaurants and Krishna conscious schools. And the world needs all these things. Prabhupada speaks about it all the time, that these are such important elements of his mission, writing books, distributing books. And so anyone who really wants to do that, and then Krishna's going to facilitate. He's going to provide for your material needs. Yeah, but it might require a little bit of a leap of faith. Like we have to be like, okay, Krishna, I just want to serve you, and you have to figure everything else out. So it's a question of faith. Not everybody is able to make that leap. And so they stay holding on to the financial security that their, job can offer them. Yeah.
I was just thinking, do you think I can bring up those questions. Do you think there's like where do you draw the line between like responsibility and then like a kind of like carelessness? Like if we say like, oh, it's just Krishna, you figure it out and I'll just sit back and take the back seat and you figure my life out for me. You're gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna make ends meet to support my family.
Mm.
You know, like because then we can also take that route and like, you know, kind of get complacent or lethargic and still have all these expectations coming from Krishna, but we're not actually acting on any of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not just going to say, Krishna, you figure it out and I'm going to do nothing. You have to be like working very vigorously in Krishna consciousness, you know, like doing intense devotional service. And then Krishna will figure it out for you. Not that you're just sitting on the sofa, you know, watching reading Amar Chitrikatha comic books all day. Or yeah, watching a animated Ramayana movie, binge watching whatever. Yeah. So yeah, we have to be really, we have to show Krishna that we're actually committed and he'll also be committed, right? It's reciprocal. As Krishna says, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So yeah. But I mean, I've also seen, I know what you're talking about, Arjuna, because I've also seen it. You know, like we all say, yeah, you work and you give the offer to Krishna and be Krishna conscious. But there aren't a lot of examples of devotees who have full-time jobs who are really like those devotees who are just shine as like exemplary models of pure Krishna consciousness. You know what I mean? When you think about, and maybe they are, but we're just not able to see it. Maybe we don't have the eyes to see that. You know, then maybe Bhaktivinoda Thakur is out there that we just don't recognize, we're not able to recognize because their Krishna consciousness is so deeply internal. And maybe we make assumptions based on what we see them doing most of the day. And that could be, what's that?
Like Pundarik Vidya.
Yeah, sometimes we might make an assumption, like, yeah, Pragati's saying there's one devotee in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he looked like a out and out materialist, you know, he was lounging on his silk covered bed and having women fanning him. He was like chewing betel nut and, you know, spitting in a golden spittoon or something. And he was just, he looked like a sense gratifier. So when Gadadhar Pandit went to meet him, he was looking at him, he was like, really? I thought you said you were taking me to meet a great devotee. Who is this guy? And then who was it that took him there? Ramananda Roy or something? I think. Anyways, whoever took him there, I can't remember who it was, said, he said, yeah, that's what it looks like, but just keep watching. And then he read a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam about, you know, about Krishna. And then when Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard the verse, he just went into complete ecstasy and he started just smashing all of his beautiful, you know, vases and $1 million pictures, paintings on the wall. And he became very ecstatic and Krishna consciously partly lost his consciousness. So, yeah, then Gadadhar was like, oh no, I made such a big offense. I made a really big bad assumption. And then he paid his obeisances and he accepted Pundarik Vidyanidhi as his guru after that. So yeah, sometimes we might just judge people based on the external things.
Yeah, I'm very good at that.
I think we all are.
No, I agree with you. That's a great point. I feel like I fall into that, mistake a lot. I mean, I do see that there's a lot of examples, even within our community, like Mahaprabhu and his wife and, Anurag. Like, there's so many people. But
Yeah.
I just sometimes wonder if, like, that's an exception. Or, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I wonder if they're kind of like an exception, like I just wonder if, like, practically sometimes just for the rest of us, it makes sense to, endeavor so much. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to. It's like sometimes I look into it and I'm like, yeah, I wish that I could be more detached. But then I realize that, it's like in order for you to raise a child and to even be able to have like a comfortable, retirement in Krishna consciousness and be able to travel and all these things, you need to have money.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Yeah.
I really appreciated your point. It really shed some light to my question.
Yeah, and we have to, everyone has a unique situation as in terms of their own, consciousness, their own spiritual advancement, the level that they're at, and their material desires and their standard of living that they need to be happy and peaceful. And yeah, we just have to work with what it is, right? Whatever it is. Just Prabhupada said that I always use I really like this quote of Prabhupada. He said that this material life is like hard wood. It's like hard wood. It's just hard. And he said, but somehow or other, just try to carve Krishna out of it. Right? It's not easy to be Krishna conscious in this world, and we all have a different log. We all have a different log of hard wood to work with. Maybe some people have a softer log, some people have a harder log, some people have a log with a lot of knots in it. Some have one that's more smooth. But we all have work to do to try to carve a Krishna conscious life out of the circumstances that we have been put in for whatever reasons. Okay? Jai, good question. So let's go to text 17. So here we talked about there's the fallible people who are having to take birth again in this material world, and then they're the infallible, which includes Krishna's eternal associates and all liberated souls who have achieved that through their sadhana and the mercy of the Lord. And now he's going to say there's another category. Uttama purushastvanya paramatme yudahrita yo loka chayam avishya bibhatya vyaya ishvaraha. Divya?
Beside these two, there's the greatest living personality, the supreme soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. The idea of this verse is very nicely expressed in the Katha Upanishad 2.213 and Shwetavatara Upanishad 6.13. It is clearly stated there that above the innumerable living entities, some of whom are conditioned and some of whom are liberated, there is the Supreme Personality, who is Paramatma. The Upanishadic verse runs as follows: Nityo Nityanam Chetanam Eko Bahunam Vidadatu Kamam Tam Atma Stam Ye Nupashyanti Diras Desham Shanti Shashwati Netaresham. The purport is that amongst all the living entities, both conditioned and liberated, there is one supreme living personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintains them and gives them all the facility of enjoyment according to different work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. A wise man who can understand him is eligible to attain perfect peace, not others.
Okay. Yeah, so this third category of beings is the supreme being, right? The Lord. So he's saying that there are these two other types of purushas, right? It says dvav imo purusho loke. In this world, there are two kinds of purushas. Purusho means two, like the ending O in Sanskrit means dual. So these two, purusho. And then he says there's another purushastvanya, there's another purusha who is the uttama, who is the best, the best person, the supreme person. And that is paramatmeti udahrita. That is the supreme Atma, the Paramatma, the Lord himself, who is actually, so you could say, one might ask, well, we heard about infallible beings that they don't die, they're eternal, they're eternally liberated. So you can see how the Lord is different from these fallible souls, but how is he different from the infallible souls? Right? Because infallible souls, they're eternal, they're full of knowledge, they're full of bliss, they have spiritual bodies, and they go to the spiritual world. So how is the Lord different from them? And so Krishna says the difference is that this one, Uttama Purusha, is maintaining all the others. So he's not just the best person, the supreme, most exalted person, but he's also the one person whom all the other people are depending on for their life and for their life. right? As we heard in yesterday's verses. So that's the Paramatma. Okay. All right. And now Krishna's going to say, who actually is that Paramatma? Yasmat ksharam atitoham aksharad api chotamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottamaha. Someone on Zoom want to read? Arjuna?
I can read.
Okay.
Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, neither the conditioned soul nor the liberated soul. He is therefore the greatest of personalities. Now it is clear here that the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are individuals. The difference is that the living entities, either in the conditioned state or in the liberated state, cannot surpass in quantity the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is incorrect to think of the Supreme Lord and the living entities as being on the same level or equal in all respects. There is always a question of superiority and inferiority between their personalities. The word Uttama is very significant. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Loka signifies in the Purusha Agama, the Smriti scriptures. As confirmed in the Nirukti dictionary, Lokyate Vedartonena. The purpose of the Vedas is explained by the Smriti scriptures. The Supreme Lord, in his localized aspect of Paramatma, is also described in the Vedas themselves. The following verse appears in the Vedas, Chandogya Upanishad 8:12-13.
You
Long
can skip
verse.
that if you want.
Yeah. The super soul coming out of the body enters the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Then, in his form, he remains in his spiritual identity. That supreme is called the Supreme Personality. This means that the Supreme Personality is exhibiting and diffusing his spiritual effulgence, which is the ultimate illumination. That Supreme Personality also has a localized aspect as Paramatma by incarnating himself as the son of Satyavati and Parashar. He explains the Vedic knowledge as Vyasadeva.
Thank you. Yeah, so Krishna is saying that first he says there's a supreme person who's beyond all these fallible and infallible. And then he says, I am that supreme person, right? Yasmat ksharam atito aham. He's saying, I am that person. And then he says, yeah, I am beyond both the fallible and infallible. And then he says, api cha uttama, that I am the best. He says, I am that person, the supreme person. I'm the best person. I'm transcendental to all these other people. I'm the greatest. And that's why both in this world and the Vedas, I am celebrated as the Purusha Uttama. So Krishna is very, he's not shy. He's not that shy to present himself. He's just, saying it like it is. Beyond everybody else, there's one person who's the supreme person, the best person, and you know what? It's me. So imagine you're Arjuna, you're like sitting there with Krishna on your chariot, and then he turns around in the middle of the battlefield, and you're all stressed out, anxiety, having an emotional breakdown, and then person who happens to be driving your chariot that you thought was just your really cool friend turns around and says, there's a supreme person, and you know what? It's me. You're like, whoa, this is so cool. So, yeah, of course, Arjuna already realized that, so it wasn't like a breaking news for him. But yeah, Krishna's just saying, yep, it's me. So that's Krishna. So, yeah, sometimes people say Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu, or Krishna's, some ordinary powerful person or whatever they say about Krishna, but Krishna's telling us who he actually is here. Okay, and now he's going to, so this is all part of Sambandha, knowing who we are, knowing who the Lord is, knowing what our relationship is. So now the next verse is about Abhideya, the process. Text 19. Yomam evam asamudho Janati Purushottamam Sasarvavid Bhajati Mam Sarvabhavena Bharata. Draupadi? I saw you unmuting yourself before. Are you there still? Draupadi.
Haribo.
Haribo. You
Sorry,
want to
my
read text 19?
Yeah, I
Okay,
have
cool.
it. Okay. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. There are many philosophical speculations about the constitutional position of the living entities and the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now, in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna to be the Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. The imperfect knower goes on simply speculating about the absolute truth, but the perfect knower, without wasting his valuable time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Throughout the whole of Bhagavad Gita, this fact is being stressed at every step. And still, there are so many stubborn commentators on the Bhagavad Gita who consider the supreme absolute truth and the living entities to be one and the same. Vedic knowledge is called Shruti, learning by oral reception. One should actually receive the Vedic message from authorities like Krishna and his representatives. Hare Krishna distinguishes everything very nicely, and one should hear from this source. Simply to hear, like the hogs, is not sufficient. One must be able to understand from the authorities. It is not that one should simply speculate academically. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this, according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. The word bhajati is very significant. In many places, the word bhajati is expressed in relationship with the service of the Supreme Lord. If a person is engaged in full Krishna consciousness in the devotional service of the Lord, it is to be understood that he has understood all the Vedic knowledge. In the Vaishnava Parampara, it is said that if one is engaged in the devotional service of Krishna, then there is no need for any other spiritual process for understanding the supreme absolute truth. He has already come to the point because he's engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. He has ended all preliminary processes of understanding. But if anyone, after speculating for hundreds of thousands of lives, does not come to the point that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that one has to surrender there, all his speculation for so many years and lives is a useless waste of time.
Jai. Thank you. So this verse, Krishna say, whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me. Does that remind you of a verse that we learned? Yeah, where Krishna says, 10:8. He says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So it's saying the same thing here, that the wise who perfectly know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God and the source of all spiritual material worlds, then what do? They engage in full devotional service. So this is the conclusion of all knowledge, is that the conclusion of all knowledge is to know Krishna, and knowing Krishna, what does one do? Serves Krishna. That's it. So that's why Krishna says that the person who knows him knows everything, because Veda means knowledge. And he says, Vedais Sarver Aham Eva Vedya, that by all the Vedas I am to be known. So if you know Krishna, then you know the conclusion of the Vedas. So you basically understood all Vedic knowledge, because all Vedic knowledge is just pointing to Krishna. So if you understood Krishna, you understood all knowledge. Even if you don't know every little piece of information out there on, the way that's on Google or AI or whatever. But still, you know the goal of all that information. And also because Krishna is, he illuminates the heart with knowledge, right? He destroys ignorance, and the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam, he gives us intelligence, he gives us knowledge, right? I give the understanding, that's my mercy. Krishna says, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna actually, whatever knowledge we need to know, even if we don't have that specific knowledge or information, Krishna can give it to us, just like that. Boom. Because Krishna is omniscient, he has all the knowledge. So whatever we need to know, he can just illuminate our hearts with knowledge, or he can arrange that information becomes known to us through some other means, right? There's no lacking for somebody who is completely devoted to Krishna. So in that sense, he's the knower of everything. So this is the process. Process is to know Krishna, serve Krishna in devotion. And so the word is bhajati, means to worship, to serve. It literally means like to share your life with Krishna. That's the only thing to do with life, is to spend it with Krishna. Intimately connected in a loving relationship with Krishna. It's a reciprocal loving service. And then he says sarva bhavena. So sarva means all, and bhava, Srila Prabhupada translates it in all respects. Bhava can also mean feeling, right? With all of your heart. That's what we heard, and worships me with all of their heart. We saw that back in 10. Let's see which word he uses. It says, he says Buddha Bhava, he uses the same word, Bhava Samanvita, worships me with all their hearts. So this is literally the same thing, that they worship him with all their hearts, sarva, with all their heart, with all their feeling. And bhava also is like, right, there's different stages of devotional service, and the last stages, the highest stages, are bhava and prema. So bhava, it's the same word. It means ecstatic emotion, the beginning of ecstatic love. And as that matures, it becomes prema. So that they don't just worship him mechanically or out of a sense of duty, but they worship him with all feeling, full of love. So that's one aspect here that Krishna's doing. Okay, so now we have one more verse, and we're going to finish this chapter. So we're at 5 o'clock, but let's just do it. Text 20. Iti guyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etad budva buddhimam syat kritta krityascha bharata. Pragati.
This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word anagha, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anagha, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities, then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus, one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart, and the rest of the chapter, from the sixth verse through the end, discuss Purushottam Yoga. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports to the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person.
Haribo. Yeah, so this chapter is Purushottama. That's what we're hearing, that Krishna is saying, I am the Purushottama, I am the best person. Literally means the best person. And the yoga of the Purushottam yoga means the process by which we can connect in a loving relationship with that best person, supreme person, Krishna. And that is by devotional service. So, yeah. Krishna says, Etad Budva Buddhimam Syat. So Budva means intelligent or learn. Yeah. In other words, by learning this, one becomes the most learned person. And then he says Krita Kritas, which means by doing this, by doing devotional service, one becomes the most accomplished person. So by learning about Krishna, one becomes the most learned. And by doing devotional service, one becomes the most accomplished. So whoever wants learning to be learned, whoever wants to be accomplished in this world, this is what you got to do. So what this chapter is saying. And yeah, so Prabhupada says that we need to be strong. What holds us back in devotional service are these weaknesses of heart, our desires to lord it over material nature, and our tendency to be attached to matter. So he says that the first part is the first 5 verses, that was about the banyan tree, describing this material world, the nature of this world, and how we need to cut it down, right, with the acts of detachment. And then after cutting down our material existence through detachment and by devotional service, then he says, then we can connect with the Supreme Person. While we're like holding on to, material things with 2 hands, how are we going to hold Krishna's hand?
Yeah.
We need to let go, at least with 1 hand, right? So a lot of us let go with 1 hand. So we're holding Krishna, but we're still with the other hand, still holding on to our material attachments. And so we're kind of like getting stretched or getting like pulled, and it's not comfortable, right? So anyways, Krishna's trying to induce us to let go of our material attachments and just to hold on to him with both hands. So you could say it's kind of like that, getting back to Arjuna's question about, having an outside job and stuff like that. Hold on, let's stop this phone. That, like before you become a devotee, it's just all in with your job, totally identified with your career and your money and your social position, your family and all that. Just holding on to that with 2 hands. This is me. This is what I do. This is who I am. And then you come to Krishna consciousness and you learn, at least theoretically, that actually I'm a soul and I'm not even supposed to be in this material world. What this we could be totally absorbed in it. So let me just actually I'm supposed to be working on my relationship with Krishna and realizing myself as a soul, eternal servant of Krishna. So then we kind of yeah, let me go for that. Let me try to learn about Krishna. Let me try to be a devotee. That's my eternal identity. I should work on that. And try to go back to the spiritual world where this little spirit soul belongs. So we hold on to Krishna, but at the same time, we're like, but I'm not so sure, because we were so attached to those things. So then, yeah, right. So we're totally just identifying with our career. Then we become devotees, but we're not ready to quite give up, the job and the stuff and all of our, gadgets and attachments and things. So we're kind of like half, 1 foot on the train and 1 foot on the platform. And then eventually, as Krishna illuminates our hearts and our path forward, come a time in life where maybe you can just give that up and just be like, you know what, I'm just going to dedicate myself to serving Krishna and whatever, and let come what may, as I said, just depend on Krishna, and he'll take care of it. So, yeah. And that's what the whole Varnashram system is for, right? That you start off from childhood learning about who you are and what you're supposed to be doing, what's the purpose of this world. But then you go into Grihastha ashram and you work through your material attachments, your material desires, and in a Krishna conscious way, so that for what purpose? So you can give it up. Right? The only reason I was just hearing something from SBK Shivaswamy. He was saying that, he was repeating what Prabhupada said, that there are 3 different kinds of intelligence. So first class intelligence means just by hearing, you understand that this material world is not what I want. Material life is not the way I want to live. I want to, do devotional service to Krishna. So I'm just not going to go there, and it's not going to invest. I'm not going to get entangled. I'm not going to be involved with material things, or as little as possible. So that's first class intelligence. And then second class intelligence is that we learn by hearing and observing. So it's like, okay, I heard that happiness is money and material things don't bring happiness. And I see so many examples of my friends and family members who just like really are working very hard at education and work and accumulating things and, doing all the stuff that materialists, the world, people of this world tell you will make you happy. And they're not happy at all. They're like really miserable. They're so stressed. Their physical health is not even good. What is because of their mental health? They're just a wreck. So that I'm not going to go there. But then the third class intelligence means that even hearing it and seeing it happen before you, you're still not convinced. You need to experience it. And this is most people. Most people learn from experience, right? So we think, oh, yeah, that's what the scriptures say, but so many other people are saying so many other things. And I see that people are suffering, but, I'm not going to make the same mistakes they did. Their marriage is a mess, but, it's just a matter of finding the right person. I'm going to find the right partner. We're going to have a great relationship. We're going to be best friends. We're going to work together and we're going to achieve stuff. And, we're not going to get carried away with our job and stuff. We're going to do something that we love, that like we would do even if we didn't have to do it for the money. And, the money's going to just be there and we're going to, live a really good life. And, we'll just figure it out. It's just people aren't happy because they haven't figured it out. Like there's a saying that people who say that money doesn't buy happiness just don't know where to shop. So like those kind of people need to have an experience. Like, okay, you try to go shopping and be happy, right? You try to like live your material life and see how you feel after 25 years. So that's most people, that we need to go through it. And then, after 25, 30 years, it'll be like, you know what? What they taught me in Gurukul was true. When I was a brahmacharini, why did I have to go through all of this? Anyways, whatever, I did. And at least somehow the Krishna brought me here. So yeah, we have to do what we have to do to learn our lessons, and Krishna helps. Okay. All right. So yeah, so if we're the kind of person that needs to learn by experience and we don't have the experience, what's going to happen? We're not going to learn. So we need to just embrace the experience, and really try our best to make it work and try to make it Krishna conscious, and the lessons will come. Okay. Thank you very much. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, I was just going to end the meeting. Let me just see what's happening there on YouTube. Oh, there's a lot of people here. Oh, it always does that. Sorry. Radhe, which country? I'm from the USA. Someone says Hindus are always welcome and attend our Interfaith Peace Conference in London. Baitul Futu. Okay, looks like he's from Islamic faith, and they do some interfaith things with Hindus, maybe Hare Krishnas. Very good, thank you. He says, love for all, hatred for none. Very beautiful, Gamer Ahmed. And MJ Boo says he loves me. All right, Hare Krishna. Thank you all. And look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.